Hello, welcome to the 2020 Festival of Books in the Alleghenies Virtual Author Series. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Hilary Hawke, and I'll be your co-host along with Sharon Hostetler. Good evening, Sharon.
Hi, Hilary.
And also with us tonight, working the controls behind the scenes, is our tech expert, Misty Smith. Hi, Misty.
Hi, happy to be here.
And our featured author tonight is Marianne Spampinato. We are thrilled to have you. Thank you, Marianne. Actually, unmute.
Thanks for including me. Glad to be here.
Excellent. All right, Marianne will be answering your questions live tonight, so please type them in the comments section of our Facebook page. Marianne is a freelance correspondent for Our Town, a weekly publication of the Daily American. The Daily American is one of our sponsors, hosting the Festival of Books Writing Contest in 2019. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank them. We're so grateful for your support. Before I hand the mic over, I'd like to acknowledge Banned Books Week by sharing some of the books that made the American Library Association's top 100 most banned and challenged books of the past decade, followed by a quote. These books are Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, the Captain Underpants series by Dave Pilkey, The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. The quote I want to share is by Lynn Lobash, the New York Public Library's Associate Director of Reader Services. Lynn says, "When books are censored, it's usually because they contain issues or characters that challenge present-day norms and make people uncomfortable. Basically, it's out of fear. That's exactly why banning books is in direct contrast to a public library's mission. We believe knowledge is power, and that an important benefit of reading is gaining new perspectives and a better understanding of our world." Our immense gratitude to Lynn and to all librarians and libraries for their work to protect books. If you're able, please do continue to donate to your local library. As for the Festival of Books in the Alleghenies, we recognize the power of books to nurture understanding and overcome prejudice. We encourage you to read more, learn more, and love more. And now it's over to you, Sharon. And Sharon has often taught another banned book, 1984, by George Orwell, to her high school students.
That's right. Tonight I'm introducing Marianne Spampinato, whose interest in writing dates to her preparing holiday newsletters during her middle school and high school years. Having earned a BA in journalism from the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, she was employed as communications director for the 100-county, 6-state American Red Cross Blood Services, Greater Alleghenies region, for nearly 34 years. She currently is a freelance correspondent for Our Town, a weekly publication of the Daily American. Her freelance work includes on-the-job articles with local nonprofits and slice of life columns. Positive feedback to her columns about her mother Betty and her rescue dog Gala inspired her to write her humorous memoir, Listen to Your Mother, Recollections of a Baby Boomer with a Wonderfully Wise Mother, available through the Daily American. Marianne's coverage of local animal advocacy organizations inspired her to write her new children's book, Betsy, the Rescue Dog, expected release by Fulton Books later this autumn. She also earned a master's in leadership and liberal studies from Duquesne University. She enjoys reading as well as writing, including narrative histories, biographies, historical fictions, and British mysteries. Her hobbies include cooking, painting, chalking, and puzzles. Marianne resides in suburban Johnstown. Welcome, Marianne.
Thank you so much for having me. And I was asked to share if I had any good news to share. And that good news is that earlier this month, 2 weeks ago, actually, my mom turned 90 years young. It's funny, when we got her handicap placard 5 years ago, she has said, oh, I'll need this full use. Well, we got her new one last week. So anyway, she's 90 years young. And also, as of mid-October, I will be in remission from ovarian cancer for 19 years. And that's part of the reason why I was thrilled to be able to speak tonight, because September is National Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm wearing kind of a teal top today in honor of that fact. And my slides are teal. So I'm going to talk a bit about the background for the book, and then, talk about ovarian cancer, and then bring you up to date on some happenings with Betsy the rescue dog. So let's see, if you'd like to start the slides, that would be great. Okay, so the first slide, it's just a title slide. It should be up. Listen to your mother, ovarian cancer, and Betsy the rescue dog. My mom, I write in the introduction about Betsy the rescue, and listen to your mother, that my mom had long told me I have a story inside me. I have a book inside me. My mom was a big Irma Birnbach fan, and she thinks my sense of humor is like that. So she always thought I had a book inside of me, and it never clicked with me what to write about until I started sounding like my mom in trying to train my rescue dog. When you start telling your dog, don't eat that, I don't know where that's been, because she'll eat anything off the ground. She's trying to nestle next to me now. And we have to look both ways before crossing the street. It hit me, because people would tell us that they loved reading my columns when I talk about my mom and my rescue dog. So if you want to turn to the next slide, there are 3 sections. Oh, that's the book cover. Forgot about that one. The 3 sections, just don't do it. Don't do it. Like, don't play with your food. Don't. And part of that, I talk about walking to school 20 minutes each way when I was going to high school. Of course, you wouldn't do that nowadays, but this was the 70s. Don't suck your thumb was another one. There are several of these. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Then a series of please do it. Like, pick up after yourself. Always wear clean underwear, because you never know when you're going to be in an accident. Please say please and thank you. And always tell the truth. Take care of your teeth. Then there's this final section called The Mother's Faith and Love, which, while most of the sections are mostly humorous, this gets a little more serious about some things that happen in our family, our extended family. And those include God Right Straight with Crooked Lines. When God closes the door, he opens the window. You never what you can do until you try. Let me kiss it and make it better. As was mentioned, the book is available through the Daily and SomersetCounty.com. It's also, if you go to Listen to Your Mother on Facebook, use that link there. I also, if you're local in Johnstown, there are also couple other places that sell copies of it as well, include the Bottle Works, Young Heart Books and Toys, the Heritage Discovery Center, and AT Merchant at the Galleria. But within this section of A Mother's Faith and Love talks my battle with ovarian cancer. And it was, I don't want to say this, it's quite shocking. And we had some problems in your late 30s. And at the time, my physician told me, oh, you're just getting close to the change of life. It's nothing to be worried about. And that didn't sit well with me. And it's a good thing it didn't. I actually didn't go for pap smears for a couple years until I turned 40. I said, I got to get back into it. Mammograms. My mother had a benign some benign breast problems. So I was very conscious of that. And I went to a female nurse practitioner, and this is not male doctor, female doctor. I had a wonderful local surgeon who was going to do my surgery and a wonderful male surgeon at Pittsburgh McGee Hospital. But somebody just wanted me to go to this female nurse practitioner, and she was great. She had me doing some charting of my cycles. She did prescribe a series of testing for me, including a urine biopsy and ultimately an ultrasound, which is where they detected, this has been the spring of 2001, that I did have endometriosis, which was not a big surprise because it does run in mom's side of the family. But she told me at the time, even though she's not a trained radiologist, it looked like I had 2 grape-sized tumor, a shadow rather, on my left ovary. Surgeon was going to do my test, do my locally do my surgery, but when my CA-125 test came back high above 300, and subsequently I met women with 5-6 times that score, who were obviously more advanced than I was, he really wanted me to go to McGee because no one locally here in Johnstown was board certified to take lymph nodes after hysterectomy. So I did end up going to a gynecologist at McGee Women's Hospital, and he was wonderful. I mean, he couldn't tell anything from anything, just in what he saw in a CT scan and all that. And when he came in to see me, because my surgery was late on a Friday, he told my mom what to tell me. And I was coming out of anesthesia, and she said, and I said, well, what happened? She goes, well, you had cancer. They found cancer. And all I kept saying is, I have cancer. She goes, no, you had cancer. And so I didn't see him. I saw his interns and residents over the weekend. But the first thing he said to me Monday morning when he walked into my room was to say, you don't know how lucky you are. When I did hysterectomy, I thought it was a simple hysterectomy. When they came back and said they found 2 grape-sized tumors in your left ovary, I about fell over. We don't find it that early in women. And so people will sometimes subsequently, how can you be like upbeat? How can you be like thankful and feeling blessed? I says, because I was found in stage 1. That's why. I mean, it was a grade B tumor, which meant it was a little bit malformed. So I did have to have 6 rounds of chemo, but seriously, I'm alive. And I often wonder, what if I listened to the first doctor? What had I not paid attention to my gut, that something wasn't right here? And that's the big thing I want to get into now on slide about ovarian cancer, if I can. Thank you, Misty. Because one of the slogans or messages surrounding various ovarian cancer awareness organizations is listen because it whispers. I do have some numbers here for you. You can see them on your screen. 22,000 new cases are diagnosed each year. Every 24 minutes, another woman is diagnosed with ovarian cancer. 1 in 78 diagnosed with ovarian cancer in this country. 50% of those diagnosed are 60 years or older. And that's the misconception, that it's a disease for 60 and 70-year-olds. I will tell you that when I was coming back from McGee, there was a teenager in the Windber, PA area who was being treated for ovarian cancer. I will tell you that 3 or 4 years ago, I met a woman in her mid-20s who had all these symptoms, which I'll soon get into, and no one back to check, to give her a CT scan, to do a test, anything. And I think she was grade maybe stage 2 or 3, and had to undergo treatment. So it's not just, maybe it's more common then, but seriously, it can happen to women of any age. Sadly, 15,500 women die each year. 90% or more of women diagnosed in early stages survive 5 years. As I said, I was stage 1. However, and this is a sad thing, only 15 and 20% of ovarian cancer cases are in the early stages. That is stage 1. Now, about the incidents, I didn't have this on here, but I did find this subsequently. Across the United States, there's about 10 new cases of ovarian cancer per 100,000 women each year. However, in Pennsylvania, that is 10.8 to 11.5 cases per 100,000 women. I can only speculate as to the reason to that. Maybe it is the age of population. Maybe there are environmental concerns. I haven't found a reason for that, but it does occur here a bit more frequently than it does in some other states. Okay, the next slide, please. What are the risk factors for ovarian cancer? The family history of breast, ovarian, or colon cancer, genetic mutations such as the BRCA, which of course has been associated with breast cancer, medical endometriosis, which I said did run in mom's side of the family, increasing age, being post-menopausal, use of hormone replacement therapy, obesity, and smoking tobacco. Those are known risk factors. Now, what's not here, but there is also seen to be that certain women of Jewish descent also get it. That's what happened to Gilda Radner. If you remember why she died so young, she died of ovarian cancer. The next slide, there are factors. If you do have pregnancies, it is not just one, but you have, I guess, multiple pregnancies. It could be a reduced risk if you actively breastfed and using oral contraceptives. Now, I have to admit, I was on oral contraceptives for a bit to try to regulate my system when I was going with a nurse practitioner, but it didn't really help me. The symptoms, next one, it might be a little bit hard to see these. And what you'll soon see with these symptoms is nothing is that unique. That couldn't be a symptom for a lot of other conditions, most of which are not necessarily fatal. Abdominal swelling and or pain, unusual fatigue, backaches, bloating and or the feeling of being full, persistent gastrointestinal complaints such as gas, nausea, and indigestion, frequent and or urgency of having to relieve oneself, abnormal or postmenopausal bleeding, unexplained weight loss or gain, and change in bowel habits. Now, looking back on myself, obviously I mentioned I did have some abnormal bleeding, so that was a factor, but again, I was getting close to 40 in my early 40s. I have GERD. I've had it for years, long before my cancer, so that would have never stuck out with me. I will say that I did have complaints, the bloating and the gas. I mean, there are certain foods you associate with it, but seriously, it was getting to the point, anytime I ate anything, a regular meal, I was having problems. And that disappeared after my surgery, as did high blood pressure. I still take meds, but my family doctor said it was a lot hormonal. I mean, I couldn't bring my blood pressure, as it was still high. And I walked, I didn't use salt, but again, it's all tied to the hormones. So those are some signs and symptoms, somewhat nondescript. But anyway, but please just pay attention to yourself. And if you have particularly multiples of these, do discuss it with your family doctor or your gynecologist to have them check it out. I mean, I'm part of the Turnertown TILS project here, Auto Group, who's the founder's wife, Ann Harris Smith, died of ovarian cancer about a year after I was in remission. And they fund educational programs and awareness programs and tying of ribbons in areas. If you're in Evansburg and Somerset and Johnstown, you probably have seen these ribbons up. I don't know how many got out this year because of the COVID, but quite a few school districts, and especially in Cambria County and Somerset County, do participate and have participated for a few years. So that's what that's all about. But I am here, and as was mentioned, you can go ahead, and if there's questions along the way, I could be glad to answer them and try to answer them. But I am here and happy that through our town, I have got to know, I never knew until I adopted my rescue dog, Gala, how many animal advocacy and shelter groups there were. And I've done stories for many of them. And it kind of preyed on my mind. I had a story roaming around a mile, and I just didn't commit the paper to this winter. And I just couldn't wrap my head about how to get this dog. Should the dog be abandoned, rescued? What should I do with this story? And I knew I wanted to be a children's book. And if Listen to Your Mother was in honor of my mom, then Betsy the Rescue Dog is dedicated to my dad, who for more than close to 3 decades was a U.S. Postal Service carrier. He had both routes all throughout Johnstown. Most longer is a walking route within the city, and then a mounted route, very similar to what's portrayed in this book. And it's not for nothing that as I mentioned in the acknowledgments in the book, one of my favorite golden books that I still have is Seven Little Postmen. And that for a reason. So, but Betsy the Rescue Dog, I wrote it and I shared it within the Right Stuff, which is a writers group here in Johnstown. We meet once a month. Lately, we do Zoom meetings, which is how I became more familiar with this technology. And I read the first draft to that group, and then they gave some feedback to me, not perhaps make it Betsy not get abused. Maybe it was too much show. Anyway, it's not quite as, hopefully as disturbing for kids as it could have been, okay? But I thought too that I should, back in my mind, even a year ago, I saw Ann Kelly, who co-owner and operator of Young Heart Books and Toys here in Johnstown. And I said, hey, Ann, I have this idea for a child. Would you, because she also works with children, and I said, would you be willing to give it a first read? And she did. So after I made the edits and the Right Stuff, I shared it with Ann, and she loved it. She sort of gave me the age range, but she said, you know, kids could be disturbed by even what's in here. I recommend that you add a parental discussion guide. And that clicked with me. And I went to Westmont Family Counseling Ministries in suburban Johnstown, which I had done an anniversary story years ago. And one of the counselors there did a beautiful job in question and answer format, providing a guide for parents to discuss, or guardians, whoever, to discuss any questions kids may have upon reading this book. And then I thought, well, I should include some information about animals rescues and shelters and what constitutes neglect. And so the executive director of the Humane Society of Cambria County wrote some information that's really, I call it generic information, because many of you may know that we have Leber's Law in Pennsylvania, but their laws could vary across the country. So it's generic information, not specific to Pennsylvania, and resources that people can get for additional information. So updates about that book, the final slide that I have, it is a children's kindergarten through grade 4. I published through Fulton Books in Meadville, Pennsylvania, and I do have my preview copies here. I just ordered some copies that I will have specifically for people who want signed copies. But in most cases, this was a little different from Listen to Your Mother. Independent bookstores can order it through Ingram Books at a good discount, and even return copies. In the first one of these, I hope, will be at Young Heart Books and Toys, that I can appear at local bookstores, independent stores or chains, such as in Greensburg or say College, Altoona, wherever, and they might welcome in have some of the proceeds from a book signing go to local shelter and may be able to bring adoptable pets in cages. So that's my goal. Anna and I have talked about that, to involve the Humane Society of Cambria County with that. So that's more. I do have an update to that slide. It's that as of yesterday, Amazon you can order the ebook and the hard copy through Amazon. Barnes & Noble, I don't think it's quite complete yet. I did see the link. They are still getting images on and also the ebook on there, but it should be there soon. And I also, in comments, I will have an author's page on Fulton Books, a link in this discussion once I have it. I was hoping I'd have it by now. And I also have a Facebook page, dedicated to this book at Betsy the Rescue Dog. So that's all I had to formally present tonight.
Well, that's all wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for the information about ovarian cancer. I would like to know what advice you would give to new writers.
Yeah, it's we discussed this at the right stuff, because there's quite a couple of the writers who are struggling with some things, because some of them are doing kind of memoir things as I am, and we just keep saying, write it out, let other people read it and give you feedback. I mean, I actually had, in doing Listen to Your Mother, I had a friend who's a freelance writer read that also. So see if, because when it's right up here, sometimes it's hard. To me, it's always hard to evaluate your own work. Get feedback from people you trust to give you the straight, feedback, and be honest with it, and keep writing. I mean, carve out time every day to write. Listen to Your Mother was slice of life. I mean, I never saw myself writing a children's book, but this came into my head, and it was something that I wanted to do. And, gratefully I had good partners in doing it.
Mm-hmm. And how did you select your book publisher?
Well, my publisher, okay. Mm-hmm. In the case of Listen to Your Mother, because some of the content in that book had been in my columns in greater or lesser detail, not all of it, but some of it, I really felt, and I got the idea through writing, as a correspondent for Our Town, I wanted to go to the Daily American. But however, they admit they have a more limited marketing scope. And Listen to Your, some local connections there, local names that wouldn't make any sense perhaps in other parts of the country. But Betsy the Rescue Dog, I thought, had a broader reach. And so I did a lot of research, and I came across Fulton Books in Meadville, very good Better Business Bureau rating. And they don't publish everyone either. I had to select everything in my final draft form. They reviewed it and got back to me, I would say, within a week or two. And then that was around Easter. So it's a small publishing house, but the illustrations, I mean, it's just wonderful job. I mean, and the very good quality, and I got to pick the style I wanted. They gave me probably 20 styles to choose from, and I did a sort of a character sketch for each one, how I'd like them to look like. So it was a very good process with them. But again, they don't publish everyone. They're a little bit selective. So I'm very pleased so far with it, and they don't collect any royalties themselves. I mean, I'm paying them a fee, obviously, for the services, but they won't collect anything from what I make on the book until after my investment is paid off, which to me, that was a very author-friendly way to go.
Mm-hmm. And it is Banned Book Week. Mm-hmm. And you don't really even have to talk to us about your favorite banned books, but we would be interested in knowing who your favorite writers are and why. And yes, if you do have a banned book, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, well, To Kill a Mockingbird has to be up there. I was kind of, when Hillary was talking about it, and I've read it a couple times. I've also read Diary of Anne Frank a couple times, which has been banned. I kind of rattle off the list, but yeah, certainly To Kill a Mockingbird is just a wonderful, wonderful book. A few books have been very well done on screen too. And as far as my favorite writers, of course, like many girls, I was a Little Women fan growing up. I considered, if you know, when you saw that I like cooking and music and all this stuff, I felt it was a combination of Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy along the way. And I also was a Nancy Drew fan, which is, of course, led into being in mysteries. But a couple of my favorites, I love Erica Baumeister. I'm not sure if who all's read her books, but if I was ever going to be on a desert island, this is probably the book I would take, is The School of Essential Ingredients. I've read it a couple times. And each chapter is about an essential ingredient, food ingredient that pertains into life of. So they're all together as participants in this cooking school, but there's chapters within the book. It's just she has a once. And I recently, last month, I completed House Lessons, which she mainly writes fiction, but this is a book she wrote. And interestingly, I didn't know this was going to be in this book, but she talked about writing School of Essential Ingredients as short stories. So I got a little insight into that. But her family, she was from California, lived in Seattle a long time. But after she and her husband were in Italy for his work for a while, home and family and extended family, it just changed the perspective on how they want to live their lives. So they came across this dilapidated Victorian house in Port Townsend, Washington, not too far from Seattle. And over the course of more than a decade, they renovated this place, and then they rented it out because they were putting the kids through school. They didn't want to uproot the kids. And so finally they moved into it. Again, well-sourced, house versus home and the creative process. It was just, I know I recommended to a couple of people I know who love old Victorian homes, and I said, you might want to read this book. And of course, I love Christie, but one of my other adult reads is Martha Grimes. She's another British mystery writer. Each of her books is the name of a British pub or supposed British pub, and this is the first one, The Man with a Load of Mischief. If you've ever been to England, you know the British pubs have very interesting names. So those are a couple. Of course, Mitch Albom, Timekeeper last month, and just it stayed with me a long, long time. Just the whole idea of why are humans the only ones who worry about time, the only of God's creatures to worry about time. And it was just a very insightful read. So I do like Mitch Albom as well.
I did read the first book that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I too found it a very interesting read.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back and ask, where is it that that our readers can go in and buy your memoir and your Betsy, the Rescue Dog?
Sure. The memoir, Listen to Your Mother, you can get it on madeinsomersetcounty.com. If you're local in Johnstown, you can get it at Young Heart Books and Toys. AT Merchants is a consignment sales store at the Johnstown Galleria. You can get it in the Heritage Discovery Center in Cambria City section of Johnstown. Betsy, the Rescue Dog, is printed on demand, so Young Heart Books and Toys does not yet have it. I can be ordered, however, now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I've told friends that since I am getting a couple hundred copies myself, if they want a signed copy, just wait and I'll get it to them. I said that, be sending this check in the mail, I should have those early November. So about all this on Listen to Your Mother and also Betsy the Rescue Dog on Facebook. So.
Okay, and since we are always celebrating libraries, can you tell us a little bit about your favorite library and your local library?
Yeah, well, Johnstown, we don't have a whole lot of libraries to choose from, but last week I heard that your author, talk about all these libraries, and it was wonderful. But in Johnstown, we have the Cambria County Library, and of course, I remember getting COVID has sort of affected them a bit, but they offer a lot of activities for storytelling for young children. And of course, that's been sort of difficult to do right now. Activities for teens to keep them engaged. They had, when the last eclipse was, they had a program there. And at that time, because I had done an article about the solar eclipse, working with them about this program they were going to have the last eclipse. One of the members of the reference lab came up to me and said, "Hey, has anybody ever done your genealogy?" And I says, "Well, I know some of my history," and because she assumed I was all Italian, and I says, "No, I have a very mixed background, 1/4 Italian, mostly European, including Hungarian, Slovak, and high percentage of Croatian." And so I did an on-the-job article with the genealogy group there, and wonderful resources for the community, not just books. Outside of COVID, they have a Inclined to Read bookstore where you donate your books, CDs, DVDs, puzzles, any kind of media, and people can buy them and help raise money for the library. So it's a wonderful resource in the community.
Wonderful. And do you have any special messages for our viewers tonight?
Sure. If I leave with anything, it's like, please share ovarian cancer, information with the women you know and love. Women experiencing one or more symptoms should follow up with their gynecologist or family physician. And if you want more information, please go to ovarian.org and ocrahope.org. I think one question I didn't get to ask is, what is a test? Sadly, the CA-125 test, and I looked at this research in pulling together, some of the information for tonight. It's still the test of record, and sadly, it's not a precise test. It's not like a PSA for men. It's not like a mammogram for a woman. Having a high CA-125 test could just indicate endometriosis. And indeed, whenever I was starting to go through my experience, someone I knew in the community, mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Sadly, she died, but she never expressed the CA-125 antigen. She never showed it. But upon discovering this, of course, they wanted to test this acquaintance I had, and she did express it. Fortunately, she only had endometriosis, so it's not a real precise test. Supposedly, there are other precise tests being investigated, but sadly, relying on being your own best advocate and being checked out if you're concerned about these symptoms that you're experiencing.
Well, again, I would like to thank you for all of the information, both about your books and about ovarian cancer. I really appreciate you coming on and doing our virtual author series with us. And I sincerely hope that next year, hopefully, we'll be able to meet in person in Ebensburg at an in-person festival of books.
Yeah, really love that, Marianne. That was absolutely fascinating, and you shared some important messages. I just want to add one more thing that the library is doing. They have a session tomorrow night, and it is for Banned Books Week. There's more information on their website to register for that virtual event. And let me just round up by announcing next week's author, who is Dr. Larry Sharp. And I have to add rock and roll. You'll know why next week. So again, thank you very much, Marianne.
And thank you to our viewers.
Thank you.
And I agree, rock and roll.